It's the Rangers Journal night.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Journal. My name is Ross Graham. You can find me on Twitter at Rant Rangers, and well, we're going to have a rant tonight, and I think it's been in the pipeline for a while, and I think we've got the right people around the table to help me do that. So, Billy, how are you? Looks like the sun's shining where you are.
It is at the moment, mate. That's about the only thing that's making me happy today, I think.
Yeah,
but it's been a glorious day here.
Yeah, likewise here in Yorkshire. But yeah, Twitter has been getting me down all day, and the news out of Ibrox is deafeningly silent. So, Cammy, how are you, bud? Good to see you again.
Yeah, just like Billy says, enjoying a nice sunny day after what has been, it's felt like a lot of rain and what have you. But the rain clouds are over Edmiston Drive at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's a strange time, isn't it, to be a Rangers fan? We should be filled with optimism and happiness, but someone that will bring a bit of optimism and happiness, I'm sure, is Doug. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. As everyone said, been enjoying the sun today, making the best of what I can at the moment.
Good man. And thanks to everyone that's watching, whether this is slightly delayed or live. Today, we're going to be talking a bit about the current situation, I guess, at Ibrox, both from a stadium point of view, from a player point of view, both in and out, and from a kind of leadership point of view, all of which I think we'll all probably agree needs strengthening in some way or another. I wanted to start, Billy, just by kind of understanding from you what your general mood is about things at Ibrox Park at the minute. How do you feel things are being run, and I guess how are you feeling ahead of the season starting in the not so distant future?
My problem, mate, is none of us have any idea how things are being run because they don't tell us anything. And we're a very, well, at times we can be impatient, but I think in general we're a patient fan base when our expectations are set and we know what's going to happen. The news in some of the papers this morning that the stadium might be closed until October is a real slap in the face. Cammy, you said, I sent a text out the other day. They're saying that the steel was going to arrive at 21st of July. No offense to you, mate, but that information we should be getting from the club, not from passing it around WhatsApps. And we shouldn't be getting this information in the newspaper that the stadium's going to be closed. We've got an unbelievably hard enough start to the season with so many different players having to come in. We don't really need to add to that by trying to qualify for the Champions League at another stadium that's not ours. Possibly Edinburgh, more than likely probably Hampden and Glasgow. But we don't know because the board haven't told us anything.
Cammy, these things can happen. There's a short window of time when the season closes, season ends. Work will have been planned, and it needs to be done very quickly and probably to a very tight, I guess, time schedule. Is it more the fact that we have heard absolutely zero from the club about progress, about whether or not people with season tickets, people who live hundreds of miles away that are planning travel and hotels and various other, I guess, kind of whatever those arrangements are, that we're just hearing nothing? Surely.
To be honest, I've had issues with Rangers communication and PR strategy for a long time, and this is just a continuation of they're quite happy to take 45,000 season ticket holders and hospitality client renewals, 2 new strips. They're quite happy for us to empty our bank accounts into their account. But when it comes to actually updating the people that make Rangers Football Club, which is us as supporters, I expected better of John Bennett when he took over the role as chairman, and he has been an absolute shambles from the start. I said before we came on, we won 55 back in 2021. What have we as a club got right in that period across the last 3 years? Sydney, other than the highs of the road to Seville, it's been one shambles after another. I've got no faith in the people that are leading I'll use the term leading our club very loosely because there is no leadership. I feel sorry for Philippe Clement. As Billy said, he has a hard enough job making changes to the playing staff and going into 2 Champions League qualifiers. I feel sorry for him. I think he displays leadership skills with from the playing side of it and the football management side of it. But people above him, they've just added extra pressure to him and his players at the start of the season. Communication it's just sit down, shut up, give us your cash. I wondered about David Murray many years ago. That was David Murray's attitude. But that was a winning Rangers team at that point. We were lifting trophies, so David Murray got away with a lot of stuff. We're now in a situation where we're setting prizes all the time, and it can't continue. It's just utterly shambolic.
I think it's very, very hard to disagree with that, Cammy. I think the one thing that you would expect more than anything is transparency and openness to the people that are funding the football club and who it means so much to. We've seen Bisgrove there, as you mentioned there, Sydney before, and gauging that EQ has been so poor recently. Gauging the feel of those that are paying the money week in, week out, that are traveling hundreds of miles, that are paying for Rangers TV, that are funding these events. It's just been it's been rotten, and I think it's left a really poor taste in a lot of fans' mouths. Doug, I'd like to get your take on it. We can all be emotional, but I like to think of you as a rational, level-headed fella. So where's your head at with this one?
Well, I mean, like I said, in some, I have a little sympathy with them in terms of the genesis of the Ibrox issue. Because I do, as I said, the metaphor I've used before, I kind of view them as a customer hiring a plumber who's turned out to be crap. But the two sort of issues is from the sort of fans' perspective and the emotional perspective is the accumulation of things. There just seems like it's got that one after another kind of effect. And that's been happening over a couple of years now as well. So it's kind of compounding that feeling and compounding the mistrust. But the biggest issue for me, and the thing that annoys me, is the lack of communication, the fact that there's just no transparency. We're sitting here coming up to, I think, 2 weeks on with no public statement from the club about what's been happening. They seem to have this, it feels like they've got this notion that they only want to put out information once they know everything themselves. But that's just not going to work nowadays because, the news cycle is 24/7. You've got pods like this. I can count up 6 or 7 pods off the top of my head that are putting out daily content between half an hour and an hour every single day. And if the club are not saying anything, then all we can do is speculate about the problems. All the fans can do is speculate about the problems. And so your void then gets filled in with all of that, and then that just builds in to the anger and the resentment, and then the most important thing, the lack of trust. And that starts to seep into every avenue. I've seen people talking about how they're not enthusiastic about the friendlies, they're not enthusiastic about the signings, they're not enthusiastic about anything. And I don't think that would be as bad if it weren't for these side issues that are coming in and just kind of painting a greyness over all the aspects. So, I think people would be more excited by young players that we've got coming in, but instead they're choosing to look at it by, we've not signed any first team players, we've not signed any big players, and so just like, as I say, just kind of paints a greyness over the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Thanks everyone that's watching and tuning into the Rangers Journal. For those that don't know or have been on Mars for the past few days, there's been a lot of reports in the media that Ibrox Stadium will be delayed on its construction of the stadium element on the Copeland Road side up until October. Here we can see on the screen a number of the reports that have come out from the Record through to Sun to Yahoo and various others. And unfortunately, I think the conclusion that we're all coming to here is that there are issues, there are things that happen, there are, like any business, any project that needs to be managed, there will be hiccups. But the communication from Rangers has been non-existent, so poor, in fact, that we're having to come to our own conclusions about actually what is going on. Billy, does this come from, and the word before that I think I wanted to touch on that Doug said was trust. Does this come from a lack of trust in our leadership or lack of leadership?
Well, before I answer that, Ross, let me just point out, like, the first picture up there, the Daily Record, that was the first clipping I seen this morning. We as a fan base are no fans of the Daily Record. We shouldn't be getting that information from the Daily Record. Whether it's true or not, we don't know. That's the problem. They could have come out and said, no, that's false. It's not going to be in October, but they haven't said anything. All these little things, because this isn't the first time they've not told us anything or not told us an update on things that we care about. With the trust that we want to have in them, when we want to trust what they're doing, but when they constantly lock us out of information, as you just said a minute ago there, like, until they know the full story, it's okay to come out and tell us, look, we haven't got it all sorted out yet, but it's in the works. As Doug was saying, with the media being 24/7, pods like ours are filling the void for fans to tell them what's going on, and obviously we hear bits and bobs, but we don't have a confirmation of anything. So there's no trust at the moment. Signing wise and stuff like that, that's a completely different matter for me. But the stadium not being ready for the start of the season, there's I think it's the film In the Loop made a joke about this, that of course they didn't turn up. Their builders always turn up late or never turn up on time. We shouldn't have maybe been taking on a project as big as that in such a short window. But I'm no expert in building, but as regards trust in the board, do any of us have much anymore?
I guess the bigger question, Billy, in my view, is who is the board? Who is the leaders that are making these decisions? Who are those people that we can hold accountable to this? Because I dare say half the people on here wouldn't know. I think everyone's got a foot in there or a finger in the pie, but actually, who is that person? You would have probably looked at James Bisgrove before. That ship's sailed. We'll come on to that as a talking point later in the pod here. But Cammy, I wanted to ask a question your way. What do you think would have been the right level of communication? And before you say any, I agree with you. But what would have been the right level? What could they have done differently?
Well, I just think, what did you say? A couple of weeks since? I mean, it feels longer than a couple of weeks since the story broke. But that's what the pre-season's always like. I just an update on the website and an update on Twitter, on all social media. You don't have to give us a war and peace. I mean, the initial update that they gave was a bit sketchy, to be perfectly honest. It didn't really. There's been more detail via other sort of other accounts and other news outlets, sort of thing. I just think that filling that vacuum. That's what happens when there's no communication at all. I mean, honestly, I think I was the one that shared that first one this morning, Billy, and I don't want to be sharing, but somebody had sent it on to myself. But who knows? That newspaper concerned may have an agenda against Rangers, but Rangers aren't helping us or the supporters by telling us what's happening. You don't have to give us, this is what's going to happen with hospitality clients, this is what's going to happen with season ticket holders. I'm not looking for a blow-by-blow account. I just like to be kept in the loop and actually advised. The start of the league season's only 3 and a bit weeks away. The fans over in Northern Ireland, fans travelling up for down south, I've got flights to book. The closer that gets, they don't know where are they getting a flight to Glasgow, or they're getting a flight to Edinburgh. It's at least narrow it down and say it's going to be Hampden. We are ironing out the finer details. At least that would be something. But we're now up in the air. I mean, what are they going to do next? Are they going to say, oh, we're going to be using Celtic Park until it's ready? I mean, that, people can make up any story that they want, because the Rangers board and the communication PR is, it's no fit for purpose for an organisation our size.
For anyone watching at home, please don't clip that as a Rangers Journal exclusive. We will not be playing at Celtic Park. Just to clarify that one there. Doug, there's a really interesting dynamic, and I've seen a few people that are commenting and on the chat. So thanks for those that are doing. Please do keep those questions and thoughts coming through. And there's a real interesting dynamic on the impact this has on Philippe Clement and his recruitment and his focus on what is a pivotal year for Rangers, both from a kind of, I guess, titles in other areas of the city, but also from a getting us back on track, being competitive, getting Champions League money, and looking to really challenge this year and win that title that we're so desperate for. What is that pressure now on Clement?
Well, first, I just want to touch on Cammy's point. I think it'd be great to play at Celtic Park, and then the stadium can see some European knockout wins for a change. But on Clement, I mean, it's just a sideshow that he doesn't need, basically. His job is hard enough, and that he's trying to, he's going through what is like a change of era. We've had this period of time that fans have soured on a group of players to the point where it's kind of been pretty much openly admitted that there needs to be a shift in era, a shift in how the squad feels and is led, and that's a difficult job to do on its own. He's bringing in what is probably going to be somewhere between 6 to 12 players, ideally, by the time the transfer season's done, which is half a squad. We're going to have shipped, hopefully it's not too dissimilar numbers out of the team as well. So, that's massive change. That's a lot of upheaval, a lot of new people having to come together, get comfortable with one another and build themselves into a team. And ideally, you want them to be able to do that in the comfort of their own home, which, they're not going to be able to do now. They're going to have to do that away. And I'm sure that, they're professional players of a good quality, so I'm sure that ultimately they'll handle that reasonably well, but they shouldn't have to, is the ultimate point. We're meant to be best in class, I believe is the terminology that was used, and that's not this. So while I think he'll focus on the on-field thing and try and keep the players focused on that, because I think that's just the best thing for them to do, is just to not bother with all that stuff, let the club sort that out, focus on the football. But it's still a sideshow there. A perfect example is Rangers put out a tweet today with Diomande doing a bit of training and saying that they were going to be doing a video with him in the afternoon and to put questions in, and there were multiple questions asking about the stadium. That's got nothing to do with Diomande. He can't answer those questions and shouldn't have to answer those questions. Those should all just be questions about, how's the training going? Are the new players settling in? And that kind of thing. But instead, you're getting those. And that's an example of something that, probably, that's probably not going to be getting to him anyway. But the fans shouldn't be worrying him with that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think that maybe it was a slightly loaded question coming your way. But Billy, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on it. Philippe Clement's trying to assemble his own players, his own squad, players that will be able to play under a certain style of football that he wants to try and implement. I guess two questions. A, do you think this could affect any player that's looking to potentially, if it's a toss-up between ourselves and another couple of clubs, do you think this would impact that? And B, when Clement does get this kind of the body of players in, do you think it's going to have a real impact not playing at Ibrox and getting that unity and that synergy that we've, has been called out previously with the fans at Ibrox Park?
Your first point, no, I don't think really. I mean, the players want to come play for the club. It's not going to bother them, from a signing point of view, that the stadium's not ready for a month, 2 months, 3 months. But much more on your second point, it doesn't help the players. The big thing is the Ibrox atmosphere. They want to come in and get used to that, and we hear that some players can't handle it there, so it'd be good to get these players in and playing under those conditions right from the word go. They're not going to get that, so that totally affects the beginning of the season for me, especially playing, Champions League qualifiers, which could really impact other players that we could bring in. If we get into the Champions League, we're not talking about a step up and player quality. So that has a knock-on effect. But just regards your first point, I don't think that would come into most players thinking when it comes to whether they're definitely going to come to us or they're going to go to another team. But I think it's really going to have a big impact. And you know what? We could end up winning every single game that we play away, and whether it's Hampden or Murrayfield. And then we're all fine. You know, we could brush it under the carpet and go, well, don't let that happen again. But say we don't, say we drop points, or say we get knocked out the first round of the Champions League qualifiers, it's all going to be thrown back on. It's not going to be Clement and the players, I don't think. It's going to be this stadium, you know, the hold up in the stadium being completed.
Just on that, Billy. So if we, I guess going back to the first question that I asked about, do you think it might put players off? If you take it away from the actual fact that we wouldn't be playing at the stadium, and I understand that I agree, probably wouldn't have an impact. Do you think the discontent between the fan base and the lack of leadership shown, more than the fact that they physically won't be playing at the stadium, could be something that would sway a potential player to jump on board?
Yeah, you never know. I still think no, but I still think that affects the second point, that they, you know, say they do go and they maybe lose a game at Hampden, and then they get knocked out. Whatever. I'm trying not to be negative about it, but just for talking sake, it isn't the best start to the season. That piles the pressure on these new players, because when it comes to that, yeah, that can be where we're not particularly patient. When it, you know, players, we've seen it with Dessers last season, you know, getting booed off the park. No player wants to feel that. And to be fair to him, he came back and he scored 20 plus goals. Fair enough. But it's going to have an impact with the fans and the relationship with these new players coming in, because we want them to gel. We want to gel with them. We want them to gel with us. So I think that's what it could affect. I mean, I still don't think someone's going to not sign just because there's a delay in a section of the stadium being closed, or a section of the stadium being closed. I don't know if that will come into it, especially these younger players that we're looking at. This is a big opportunity for most of them. To come to a club like ours, and for maybe the players like, say, Kenny McLean, well, he's going to come whether we play here or not. Sure. He's a Rangers fan, so I still don't think so on your first point. Second point, I still think, yeah, that has a big impact with our relationship with these players.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And Cammy, look, I'm going to bring this slide up here, and this just is I guess a drop in the ocean of the mood, the feeling, the sentiment towards the board. Just to pull a few out there, if anyone's listening and not watching this, spot on. The silence is deafening. I don't think I've ever felt this level of apathy towards our football club due to the amateurs that are running it. I've never felt so disconnected. Anger would be fine, but they're actually creating apathy, the worst state to be in. And I think we can all relate to all of these things. I just want to go back to the question again. If you were looking at building a team together and trying to create unity in this environment, surely Clement's got an extremely tough task on his hands, because we know every interview, every question, if you were a reporter and you're doing a press conference, every question will be about the stadium, will be about the noise, will be about the leadership, will be about how we move this club forward, and try and sort of move on from, I guess, this absolutely farcical situation.
Well, the players are obviously, we're doing the training camp, went away for that yesterday. I'm not sure if the media are over with it, and there's going to be any access, any content where the manager's going to get asked any sort of questions. You know, I mean, I think he is very good at handling most questions that have been thrown at him, but ultimately he shouldn't need to be. His role is to put a better Rangers team on the park with the players that he has. You know, I think I've said on pause last week, Rangers is just about winning games. What happens in the background it's like a sideshow. I mean, you know, it's not a very good sideshow at the moment, but ultimately when we get to the 3rd of August and we play Hearts, it's at Tynecastle. We know that for definite. We win that game, and then we'll be going into Champions League qualifiers off the back of it. You know, and I think one of the guys said that we might look back at this at Christmas and say, "Oh my God, that was a bit of a shambles across the summer." But my God, we had a great start to the season, and we managed to navigate into the Champions League and collect the 40 million cash, because ultimately he's just going to have to almost create like a siege mentality amongst the squad. I just kept talking there. I knew siege mentality was going to come. It was in my head, and I couldn't actually think of the description. But ultimately, that's what he's going to have to do within the Rangers training centre. And while they're away and they're playing these friendlies and that sort of situation, yeah, they're not going to get access to Ibrox for a wee while. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. I think Clement, when we were having the Dens Park debacle, which is quite ironic that we're now in the situation where our own stadium's causing a problem. He said, if we need to play in the car park, I just need to get the team winning, and ultimately that is what the noise in the background is less when there's a winning team on the park. But I would hope and I would expect over the next 48, 72 hours at the very most, Rangers have to issue some sort of comms with regard to this and some sort of update, because continued silence isn't doing anybody any good.
Yeah. Doug, Cammy touched on it there, I guess, what kind of a good resolution could look like and get fans back on board. What do you think, from your point of view, that could look like?
Well, as you said, first and foremost, a winning team will paper over any cracks. So that's the easy answer. The more difficult answer is that I think they need to have a look at their communication strategy and reassess how they're approaching these issues. I feel like they maybe need to get someone younger in some kind of PR or public facing role, who is a little bit more experienced with how modern media works and how modern news cycles work, and to sort of analyse the club's communication structures. I know they use Twitter for certain things and put announcements out through that and club statements and stuff like that. But I think they've got things like the fan advisory board. We're still waiting on the minutes for that meeting that I've mentioned previously. I've tried to contact them again, not heard back from them as yet. But I feel like we've kind of gone a bit backwards. It seemed like it actually had improved a bit under Bisgrove. One thing I will credit him with was he did feel quite present. I felt like I saw him a reasonable amount of time, and he was on. I'm sure he went on a few podcasts and things, and I saw interviews with him, and he talked about the club and what was going on, and I felt like it was a positive move. But that again is sort of dried up again. As I say, we've not heard anything from Bennett in a long time, and having something I think that's maybe semi-regular would be quite good. Whether that's like some kind of, I know that I haven't just talked about doing something modern. The concept of a newsletter seems a bit antiquated, but even if it was something like that, that could be emailed out to fans once a quarter. They just talked about what's been going on in the club, the things that they've been doing and are planning, and keeping fans up to date on a regular basis, just generally, as well as looking at how they're going to address when issues come up like this.
Yeah. Well, look, I think we're all agreed that communication is the number one thing that we're all crying out for. We're the fans who put the money in the coffers. We're the people that turn up week in, week out and pay for the Rangers TV and pay for the kits as soon as they're out. And I think, as the title of this podcast, I guess, symbolizes that we do deserve better as a fan base. We don't want to regress back to the dark days. And the reason that I've worn this shirt today, for those that can't see, is because it is a reminder of those dark days. It is the days when we didn't know what team would be turning up at the start of next season. We didn't know if we'd have a manager, if we'd have a striker, what that would look like. And I guess one other thing, and for transparency, before the kind of the stadium issues kind of blew up over the weekend, Billy and I were going to have a bit of a ding dong about the state of play from a recruitment point of view. So I guess my next topic of contention, and feel free to get the fangs and claws out here, is about where we are as a team. Where is our recruitment? Is it where it should be? Are we expecting more? Are we expecting better? And I guess when is that going to happen? So I just want a very brief overview from you, Billy, so I can understand what points to come back on you at.
Yeah, just for anyone listening, this was meant to be a jovial podcast between me and you, going back and forward.
Yeah.
We're probably on the same page for a lot of things, but I just said I'd like to be the devil's advocate for a comment you made that was it there hadn't been enough done. I just think we need to, and I will try to be brief, but we just need to be. And I guess it's strange me saying be patient now, but just have an understanding of how the transfer market works. These young guys that have come in so far, these are the easier signings to get over the line. We've got a Euros on at the moment. The bigger clubs haven't started spending their money. We are not, unfortunately, the big spenders anymore. So we're going to have to wait for these clubs to kind of trickle that money down. So they, the financially bigger clubs than us get the players in that they want, and then they can let go of the players that they don't want. And that's probably the especially when it comes to the experienced players, that's what we're looking at. So yeah, I said you were being a bit of a panty wetter with your comment on our thread the other day there, just with your kind of negativity or your, I guess, just not impatience, but you want it all now, and that is typical of Rangers fans. But it's different now, the transfer markets. For me, this goes on too long. Was it 3 months that this one's open for? And I know there is a competition on, but I share your frustrations to a degree, but I think you just maybe just need to temper your expectations with a bigger, viewing the whole picture. That's not just us that's involved in the transfer market. So that was my point.
So I guess the point is then, do you think we're feeding on scraps? We need to wait for the big fish to fight each other, and then we'll nibble away at the rest of the carcases. Is that where you're at?
That's one way of looking at what I just said, I suppose, mate. Yeah, why not?
Well, look, let's go through it, Cammy. So we've got Hamza Igaman through, young lad, plying his trade overseas. By all means, looks like one for the future. Clearly, we've put a bit of money behind it. Hefte, mid to long term target, come in the door again, slightly unproven from a lesser league. Connor Barron, I think that's one that we can all get excited about and definitely see a route to the first team, if not being there already. Liam Kelly, how is he going to fit into the team? I guess we don't know. It feels like it's going to be a backup. And then Clinton and Ciala, again, another prospect for the future. Cammy, my thoughts were that we would have a very clear plan of who we wanted to go after, get them in early doors, have a fantastic preseason with them. All the things that we didn't like about Beale, the poor preseason, the not getting the players in quick enough. I thought we were going to iron that out this year. How do you feel about how the recruitment's gone?
I expected more, but I'm mindful of what Billy has said with regard to where we are in the food chain and all that sort of situation. Bigger deals drives the mid-range deals and that sort of situation. I think my frustration is that it doesn't appear to be any obvious, and there hasn't been a signing, in my eyes, that is going to be a nailed-on first 11 player.
Yeah.
That could yet come. We are only at the 8th of July. In an ideal world, I was hoping for, I think I spoke on pod at the end of the season, the spine of the side. There's a lot of things need fixed in our side, but the spine of the side is the key to any successful side. So I think Kenny McLean would be in the centre of the park. I think we've obviously brought in a centre half in Ciala, but he's not played any, he's not experienced. So that I'm not throwing the toys out, but I did expect one or two more to be in. There's so many question marks over players going out the other way. I think I read a comment there about the ongoing market about Saudi. That's a week on Wednesday before that opens. There's apparently a lot of interest. I think pretty much every player is available. So if we get acceptable bids in, I think that might then generate us the ability to do a bit more business. I think we're operating on probably a limited budget anyway, you know, and I think we spent the Diamandi money. You know, we were committed to so Diamandi, although he's been there for 5-6 months, is now a Rangers player. So that money we've had to outlay there. We've paid a fee with regard to Cortez, although that's an obligation to buy. I think because they aren't new. I think it's because we've seen them for the last few months. Obviously, Cortez was injured, but I'm trying not to in an ideal world, Ross, that we were going into the friendlies with 80% of the team, all fresh new faces, and we could all get really excited about seeing different players, you know. But it could yet happen over the next 2 to 3 weeks. But I think until the major tournaments end and then the business elsewhere happens, I think we're just going to have to be patient. And I think August will probably see a lot happening in the midst of qualifiers. I think we will do our business right up to the very end of the window. I think whether we make the Champions League or not, I think it's going to be one that we're just going to have to try and be patient. But also, I think the transfer window at 3 months is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous length of time. You've got a winter transfer window of 1 month. The summer transfer window should be the month of July, for example. That for me, I think would make far more sense.
Yeah. No, fair comments. I've seen a few people writing about the fact that we've got a preseason friendly with Ajax coming up, and we had a bit of a chat on WhatsApp, Cammy, about whether or not we think, you know, should we have the team sort of, as you say, 80% there when you approach these things? Otherwise, you know, what is the point in them realistically? Doug, let's just run through it very quickly. Tavernier, right back. Is he going to be there? Who knows? Goldson, centre back. Is he going to be there? Who knows? Ben Davies, centre back. Is he going to be there? Who knows? Ridvan, is he going to be playing left back? Who knows? Centre midfield. We've lost Jack. We've lost Lundstrom. Tom Lawrence, is he going to be playing? Who knows? Todd Cantwell, you know what I'm going to say? Who knows? You know, Dessers, who knows? This for me, and this is on top of the stadium issue, this for me is a worrying situation that we're in. I don't want to come across like I'm being a bit dramatic here, albeit I might be. This is not a good situation going into friendlies. You see the players boarding that plane and you think, you shouldn't be there. You probably won't be there. You're definitely not going to be there. And before you know it, you've got a way worse team than we ended the season with. I don't want to be being dramatic, but I mean, what do you think?
Well, yeah, it's definitely something that we need to keep an eye on. It's not ideal to be going into friendlies with potentially only half of your new signings in place, and obviously potentially half a group of players that aren't going to be there. But at the same time, you know, I agree with Billy. I think we do need to temper the fact and be really cognizant of the fact that the Euros has a big impact to the transfer window, and it was always going to slow things down. Where the Euro's not there, I think we might have had a little bit more business done. There probably would have been a bit more business in general. But, I mean, as Cammy said as well, it's a long window. So, at the same time, there's always going to be work happening at the end. I mean, I'm quite pleased that we've done what we've done thus far. I think it's good that we've got a group of players in. And what's that? Is it 4 or 5 signings? I know the situations aren't the same, but I mean, them across the way, they're I believe their first friendlies in 2 days, and they haven't made a single signing yet. I'm sure they're looking to get new players in, refresh their team, and build on what, you know, where they are. They want to continue their position. I know that our need is significantly greater, and therefore there's more of an onus there. But still, you know, it's still this sort of situation of wanting to get players in before. I do think we're in a decent position with some of the players that are, like you say, that are likely to go. So, for example, Dessers and Lammers, both appear to be popular. There appears to be a good amount of healthy interest in there. And so I think they will both go. when the time is right and when the clubs are starting to make moves, because there's plenty of interest there, so there's no reason they shouldn't. I think for me, the bigger concern are the midfield players, the ones that are on those slightly, particularly the kind of championship type of ones that are on those kind of higher wages, but are probably like mid-tier value. I think they might be the ones that are a little bit more of a struggle to shift, because we've struggled to shift them in the past. And well, we all know where I stand on Tavernier, so I'm quite happy for him to be there when we start the season. So for me, I think those midfielders are probably my main concern. Will we be able to get the ones that we want moved there so we can bring in more quality?
You touched on something there, and I'll just pose it to Billy. You mentioned our challenging, I guess, challengers on the other side of the city, if you want to call them that. And the fact they haven't made any moves, they don't need to. They've just won the league with having dropped multiple points throughout the season, and we couldn't capitalize on it. For me, I think we're in a way worse position than we were at the end of the season right now. I'm not saying the players we've brought in aren't good. I'm not saying that at all, or they're not going to be good players for us in the future. But are they better? Could they do a better job now than those that have walked out the door at the end of the season without the contracts? I dare say I would trust them more than those that we've brought in, those unknown quantities. Billy, I mean, there's only 2 or 3, say 3 or 4 recruitment people at Rangers who are finding these targets, who are locating them, who are establishing contact, who are having these conversations. How are we able to get 6 players in the space of a month or 3 weeks, realistically, without being bent over in some way, whether it's price, whether it's terms, whether it's whatever it will be?
The season doesn't start tomorrow, though, mate. So I think that's where I'm not as worried about it. So like the players that are there just now will not be all starting the first game of the season. There'll be new players come in. 6 play. I mean, just when you were talking to Doug about them across the road not having signed anybody yet. I mean, we need 10, 12, maybe 13 players to come in. We've got a significantly different challenge than they'll have. So they're not probably looking to bring in anywhere near that amount of players, but we are just. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's the point you're trying to get at, Ross. But we're going to be held to ransom for some of these players. Is that what you're saying?
Definitely.
I don't think we can afford to be. So hopefully, we've heard that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 targets for every position we're looking at, and if one falls through, we'll move on to the next one. I don't think we're going to be. I mean, I'd like to get the spine sorted out as well. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think we're going to be looking at 6 of those players being the experienced ones. I think we're probably still looking at another couple of the younger players to come in as well, with maybe 4 or so like experienced ones. Do we want much more than that? Clement certainly seems to be looking at a younger, bring the average age of the squad down, younger players. I think he might surprise us. I think some of these players will start more games than we may be giving them credit for at the moment, and hopefully the manager knows what we don't about these players. So I didn't trust the players that left. I wouldn't trust them now to start a game for us again. I'm glad that pretty much all of them are out the door. There's a couple more I'd like to follow, and I think that's also sticking. But I know it's a point you're probably going to bring up in a minute, Ross, but we need to get rid of these other players first, and there's certain markets that they've been linked to that the transfer window isn't open yet. So we could have all these players just ready to click the button once we know we'll get a few, 4 signing on fees for these players. So Clement gives me a feeling, maybe it's unjustified, but he gives me a feeling of trust that he's been round the block and he knows what he's doing, and I'm not going to get too wound up about it when we're only halfway through the transfer window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've been able to phrase that very well, and I think I understand exactly what you're saying. I think what we're used to, and Cammy, correct me if I'm wrong, is in previous seasons we've complemented the team with 3, 4 players, maybe 5 at a push. We're at a position now where we are at a complete rebuild. I mean, we've heard the term rebuild banded about before, even Gerard Beale, we've heard it, but this is stripped back to bare bones, Cammy. We've got a bit of time ahead of us now, and I hope what Billy says is right, that we've got a number of targets that are, in the crosshairs, so to speak. My worry, though, is those that are leaving the club. So people will know that Rangers are in a selling market. We need to sell in order to buy in. What does that say for those clubs that come knocking on the door where there might be an interest in a Cantwell or a Lawrence?
I think this is where the people that are doing these deals have to hold firm and have to get the value and have to get the right price. The likes of Lammers has went out and done well on loan. There's obviously a bit of interest in him. There's a bit of interest on Dessers. We just have to. I think this isn't all going to be fixed by the 31st of August. You know what I mean? I think this rebuild, refresh, whatever you want to brand it, it's going to take 2, 3, 4 transfer windows. You know what I mean? There's players that'll probably be in the starting 11 at the Hearts game that I would probably happily see sold. But there's other priorities, you know, and I think you might just have to, and the manager might have to just certainly work with some players that he isn't 100% convinced on. But I think it's patience is not something that I possess a great deal of, to be perfectly honest with you. But I think we just have to try and trust the manager and trust Nils Koppen.
And don't get me wrong, I think we've got the right people from a playing squad point of view and recruitment point of view there. I don't, nothing that we're seeing is wrong. The players that we're getting in, Doug, you can surely vouch for me on this one as well. The level of player that we're looking at and the markets that we're playing in is encouraging, right? Come on, give me something, please. I'm about to top myself in a minute.
No, absolutely. I think like I think it was Cammy touched on, we're changing the age structure within the group. It's coming down dramatically with the players that we're signing. They're young, exciting players. They're hungry. They're players that want to develop their careers. I mean, let's say Enciala, this is a guy that's come from AC Milan, one of the biggest clubs in the world. A club that offered him a 3-year contract to stay, and he's turned down because he wants to play football. That's someone that has a drive, that wants to push his career forward. So, I highly imagine that a player that was good enough to be offered a contract to AC Milan wants to play at the highest level he possibly can. And, unfortunately for us, that isn't in the ultimate scheme of the world of football Rangers. That'll be a Premiership or a top 5 league somewhere that he'll want to be eventually. And he can only do that if he comes here and does well, because clubs will look at that and think, well, he was able to thrive under that kind of pressure, under that size of fan base in Europe. These are important points that I think, this is the benefit that we offer in terms of selling players to other clubs. So I expect Igmani to be exactly the same. He's a young, exciting player. He's probably a bit disappointed at not having got into the Olympic team they just announced.
Yeah, that's right.
I imagine he's probably disappointed at missing out on that. So, that will be a driver for him, hopefully. And I think that they're exciting players to look at, and exciting markets to look at. The South American market is one that we've had hit and miss with, but is a market that produces exciting players without a doubt. And South Americans are very keen to come over to Europe as well. So I definitely think the thing that we've been really bad at is identifying players when they're at the step before being just out of our reach, where they're going to maybe championship clubs that are going to offer them more, or they are going to those lower end Premiership teams, things like that. We need to get good identifying players who are at that step just before, who we can go, well, you can get Europe with us right now if you come here, and get them at that step before, so that we're the ones selling them for the 20-30 million, rather than finding out they're good just as they're approaching everyone noticing they're worth 20-30 million. So I do think that is an exciting group that we've got. I said at the beginning of the transfer window that there will be players here come the end of the season that fans don't want to be there anymore, because we just simply can't we can't wipe the slate clean in one go. Nor do I think I would want them to be honest, because I don't think you can build a successful team if you replace 25 out of 30. you just be doing too much at once. So there's going to be some players that are still there. So as long as we can still get something decent out of them, I think it's worth remembering that not all the players that we're looking to leave have been terrible. I mean, if we take Cantwell, for example, he's had good games. He's been reasonably decent. His numbers are actually, I feel like I've actually been a bit too hard on him in terms of his numbers over the last year. They're a little better than I thought they were. They're not where I want them to be, but there's still the potential there for him to contribute if he's still there. And just use Dez as an example. This is a 20-plus goal striker that we're all desperate to get out of the club. So if he was to be there, I don't think he's going to be, but if he was to be there, that's not the end of the world. Oh no, we've not sold a 20-goal-a-year striker. He would be able to contribute. So I don't think it's going to be awful. And some of these players may even improve under it with a new team around them and new players around them. So there is also that possibility as well. And that'll be part of Clement's job and the club's job, I think, as well, as to, if it is getting towards the end of the window, looking at the players and prioritising, right, who do we really need to get out the door first to get money in to buy new players, and who, if they stay, can I get something out of next year?
Yeah, I think that's good context to add in. It's been mentioned here in the comments as well. I think if you can get the right players around some of these guys, then maybe, we'll get them playing a bit better. But Billy, how would you feel about going into the season with maybe 2 or 3 more signings and that's kind of that for the business done?
Yeah, probably not great, mate. I think we still need 5, 6, 7 even. As just regards the players that might still be there. Just what you were saying there, Doug, actually, you've kind of turned me around on that. Yeah, some of these players, imagine clapping your hands when we get rid of a 20 goal striker. I mean, it's crazy but I guess it's just something the fans haven't clicked with them, or they're not seeing it with them. But we have reportedly interest in quite a number of these players. I think maybe your Lawrence and Kieran Dowell, they might be more likely, and Cantwell as well, more than likely probably will be there in the end. But I think the ones that we probably, as a fan base, want out the door, they probably will go. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be happy. No, I wouldn't be happy, mate, with that. Sorry.
No, I'm again, maybe a leading question, because I certainly wouldn't be happy. Cammy, we need experience through the door, don't we? We need people who are going to come in, who are going to understand what it's like to play in a high-profile match, understand pressure, understand playing 50-odd games a season. And clearly we haven't had that yet. But my view would be that those players are some of the players you need to get in first, and then let the newbies come in and sort of allow that experience to rub off on them, surely.
Again, repeating myself, in an ideal world, those will be the deals. I don't think there's ever an order how you do your deals. But I totally take on board what you're saying. You would in a perfect situation get key players. Repeat again, the spine of the side. That are going to be fundamental to playing for 40 or 50 games. But every club at our level across Europe is probably looking for the same sort of type of player to come in and make a difference. That's the issue. I mean, to your issue about if we started the season with only 2 or 3 more, I'm looking for 2 or 3 starting players by the start of the season. And that's before any of the potential players that ended last season as starters leave. So that only complicates the situation. It's not. I mean, it's easy for us to sit here and sort of talk about it, but there's so many parts to a transfer. We might have agreed a deal for X player who's going to be the number 6 that I'm craving, that's going to control the middle of the park. But the team that we've done the deal, they have to bring a player in. So the deal's there in the background, but all the parts aren't in place to enable it to actually go through. And that's just one aspect of it.
Yeah. And I guess just going back to the point at the start, Doug, the kind of the lack of, I guess, look, we all check Twitter 100 times a day for any rumors. I must follow 30 foreign people that have to click translate tweet every time they tweet something out, just on the hope that it says something about a promising young player who's going to sign for us or an experienced player. But I think that the sort of the lack of noise about the stadium, the lack of seeming transfer business being done, as a Rangers fan, does it not scare you, Doug?
No, I mean, I'm a fairly positive thinker, so I tend to always fall on the bright side of things. As I say, I'm choosing to look at it, and I'm excited by the work we've done thus far, and I believe that there will be more to come. I hate to harp on it again, but the Euros impact is something that I'm just very aware of, and ultimately, transfer deals, they're not done by priority, they're not done by preference, they're done when players are available, and when the deals can be signed. And I think that the kind of players that we're now kind of gravitating towards, those more experienced players, they're just not available right now because of the Euros, and that has been delayed because of that. But I mean, in terms of, if we're looking at the worry of we've got all these players that have been failures still there. If you look at the team, you can actually make a starting 11 that's pretty decent, and only uses 2 existing players, both of whom are positive ones. So, we can start the season with a brand new team if we want to. Sorry, 3. I forgot Butland. But he's also a positive one, so it's fine. So I mean, we can start the season with a brand new team that's full of young, exciting players, and players that we've not seen much of yet. So, I think that's an exciting thing. I think that's a positive thing. Yes, I want more to that, but I do believe that we will get more to that. And we may also, we also have to factor in the potential that there may be a little bit of money that's, or not a little bit of money, a little bit of tactical planning that is also based around, what happens with those Champions League qualifiers. And, we've seen that before. If you get in, then we maybe get another player or 2 at the end. And so there may be a bit of that as well. Ideally, we'll have signed another, say, at least 4 players by then. But I'm sure, I'm sure we will as well.
Okay. Well, I hope your optimism rubs off on me and the rest of the fan base, because I'm starting to get a little bit twitchy over here. Billy, look, we're going to wrap up in a sec, but firstly, I've got a direct line with you and Mr. Rangers now. I want you to tell him exactly what he needs to do about this, about the stadium, whether it's communication, whether it's whatever, and get him on board. The floor is yours.
Just tell us where you are. Like, we're an understanding fan base if you're just honest with us. So just see if you haven't got things signed and sealed for Hampden or whatever, tell us that. See if you don't know the exact date the stadium is not going to be ready for, tell us that. But assure us as soon as you find out, you will let us know these things, and don't just leave us in the dark with this stuff.
Yeah. And would you like to say any goodbyes, Billy? Thanks for joining us again, bud.
I'm reading the comments as they come in, guys. I've wanted to bring up one earlier on about the Euros not affecting our transfer business. Of course it does. We're looking for players. Okay, we're maybe not signing players that are playing in the final of the Euros, but maybe a team we're buying from is. So these puzzles, it's like buying a house, isn't it? You're waiting for the person, to buy yours, and then you can go out and buy one down the line. It's a chain of these things. So that was the only thing. But no, loved it again, guys. Thanks very much. Thanks for having us on, Ross. It was more positive in the end than I think we were thinking it might have been at the beginning of the show. But thank you everyone for listening, and like and subscribe.
Thanks, Billy, for joining us again. Words of wisdom. Cammy, tell us where your head's at, mate. It can only get better from this, surely.
It can. I mean, I think we're an hour in, and I never used the word scunnered. That was one of the words I was going to use at the start, But I think it's been a very open and honest conversation. I just want the club to talk to us. Just echo what Billy has said. Just just tell us where we're at, you know, and that's all we want. Just communicate. You know, this isn't just about this issue. I've got long-standing issues about communication. Rangers need to communicate with the supporters far better. This only highlights it. One of the comments was talking about Dick Advocaat signing 5 or 6 players in a week. Oh my God. It was like Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, Arthur Newman, Gabriel Amato and all that sort of stuff. You know, it would be great if you had 40 million that was going to allow us to do that. You know, we're obviously different times, you know, but listen, it's always great talking about Rangers, and the interaction in the comments has been good, and I think we've all been open and honest, and there's not been any, you know, proper rants. It's all been constructive. We all just want the best for Rangers, you know, and that's all that the club should be doing, is do what's the best for Rangers and do what's the best for our supporters.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Cammy. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. And talking about some of the previous players that we've signed, we are going to be starting a new little mini series as of next Monday, and it will be consecutive Mondays after that, where we take a deep dive into into the Rangers vault and look at some teams, managers, kits, players from years gone by. So stay tuned for that one. Doug, it's been a pleasure having you on, mate. You have been a voice of reason when I've been getting in a tiz there. So any last words to those watching at home?
I'm glad we're ending, because Curry's bringing up my underwear, so that's perfect time, I think, for us to be going offline. But I think my advice to fans who are worried would be to put faith, rather than in the board, put faith in Clement and Coppin, because in my mind there's a structured plan there. I can see in the players that we've signed, you know, a level of consistency, a level of what appears to be planning and forethought. So, you know, even if the board is a complete mess at the moment, put your faith in those two, because at least they seem to have an idea of what they're doing. And, you know, if they're the ones obviously largely in charge in terms of signings and things. So that would be my advice right now, is put your faith in those guys for now.
Wise words. Well, I feel a lot better after this. I feel like that's cleansed something out of my system. So thank you everyone that's been commenting on the chat and leaving your thoughts. It's really good to get that interaction. As Billy said, please do like, share, subscribe to the Rangers Journal, and things can only get better. So we'll see you on the next episode of the Rangers Journal.